Hey everyone! What if I told you that you can make a stunning bracelet in minutes with just whatever beads you have in your stash and come out looking like a very professional, stylized design? Probably think I was nuts, but it's actually workable. I'm going to teach you how to do a project using Capture Chain. We're going to be freeform styling that beautiful little capture chain through all the different beads, and we're going to be creating a path that symbolizes path to Patagonia for this specific bracelet, because the beads that I picked out, and they're very mismatched, but they do kind of have this natural, beautiful theme that kind of when they go together, it works. So you can create a story with your bracelet and again, just using capture chain and a little bit of bead stringing, make yourself a very cohesive design. So if you're looking for materials and inspiration, you can check out the video description with the YouTube video. And I want to welcome you to my channel. My name is Nilay Patel. I'm the owner, designer, and educator here at SilverSilk and More, bringing you guys fun, fantastic tutorials. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's tutorial. I'm going to cover the tools first, then the materials, and then everything you need to know to complete this bracelet. All right, got a few tools at my table, and these are the tools that I'll need to complete the project. I like to have a pair of really sharp cutters. These are from Lindstrom, and these are excellent for cutting beading wire, craft wire, thread, you name it. I wouldn't go as far as memory wire though, because that's a little bit too much for these pliers. But you could certainly cut quite a few different materials with this. So again, just having a good, strong pair of cutters is recommended. I do have a pair of chain nose pliers and wide nose pliers. Both are from Weber's. And you can see that one has a white tip. It's very curious. So that tip is actually dipped in Tool Magic, which is a substrate that basically creates a rubberized coating on whatever material coats it. So in this case, I wanted to prevent any marring and abrasion to happen to any of my findings. If you're familiar with SilverSilk findings, they're very, very, very polished, and so you want to be careful how you crimp them. So I recommend grabbing some Tool Magic from Softflex Company, dipping your pliers and the tips of them in the Tool Magic, and letting them dry for about 24 hours, and then they're ready to crimp. This provides a really great grip on the crimp as well, which we'll demonstrate here with this project. And again, it just prevents any scratching. The chain nose pliers is simply going to be used to open up jump rings and to help navigate my beading wire, which I'll talk about here in a second, through the capture chain. So I recommend having a pair of those as well. And then I've got a pair of magical crimpers, which we'll need for our beading wire. I've got some crimps, in fact, that I'll be using. So let's get into our materials. I have some beading wire. This is medium softflex beading wire in copper. I went ahead and crimped one end. I'm going to show you how to do a crimp on the other end, and we're going to be using our magical crimpers. The crimps that I've used are actually 2mm crimps. I put them in a Ziploc baggie because I'm notorious for losing stuff on my table, by the way. So in order for me to keep stuff organized, I got to keep stuff in a Ziploc bag. But you can see that I've got a couple of jump rings in there and a little lobster claw clasp. Really, you just need 2 crimps that are 2x2 crimps again. I just have some extras in here in case I lose them on my table. As far as beading wire goes, you only need about a foot. Okay, I've also got 2 4mm terminators. These are little tiny crimps that crimp the end of the capture chain, which is what I'm about to show you. It gives a nice professional cap to the end of the capture chain and just prevents any of the wire from sticking out or the ball chain from coming loose as well. So I recommend having a couple of those, just a nice decorative touch at the end. And which brings me to my capture chain. You can really use any color you want, and you can think about it in the sense if you want to contrast from your beads. So let's say that you've got a bead soup that's black. And again, for this particular technique that I'm going to show you, it's not going to matter what shape or size or colors your beads are going to be, but you can get, you know, a nice tone on tone design. And maybe you want to add a little contrast to it to make it a little bit more artistic. So if you have black beads that, again, just doesn't matter the shape or size, and you've got maybe a gold wire that runs through it, you can get very great contrast that way. Now, you can also go matching. So the materials that I'm going to be using are very natural inspired and have a lot of green in it. So I decided to go the green route, and I'm using olive colored capture chain, which is a olive colored wire that's been knitted over silver ball chain. And you only need about 2 feet of this to work with. I've got a giant spool. I'm going to be working off the spool directly just because I just don't want to waste any of my knitted wire chain. You can always pre-cut it if you want to, but I would recommend just working off of the full 3-foot spool and then just seeing how much you have left over for another bracelet or maybe some sort of an earring neck rope or something. And then I've got some beads. And again, these are directly from the book kit that ties in with this project. And the book kit is available on my website, silversilkonline.com, in the design kit section. But again, you can use mismatched beads as to your heart's content. And I've got a little Silky's charm as well, just to kind of embellish the end of it. But I've got some great components and beads here to work with. I've got this really fun lampwork bead. I've got some crystal in here. This to me kind of represents the ice caps that's in Patagonia or nearby. So I thought that was kind of fun. And then I've got a fish that kind of symbolizes the rainforest and other wildlife there. I've got a little bear, speaking of forests. So I've just got a mismatched little plate of beads here. I've got a beautiful little orange crystal that kind of reminds me of the sun. So again, I'm making up my own story, right? And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It's your story. So I'm going to have those setting out, and I do have a little bit of a template design here, so I could show you how it's going to be strung together, but this is going to be so brilliant just for putting together in minutes. So let's go ahead and get started because I'm eager to get into it. The first thing I want to do is to prep my capture chain here. To do this, I simply turned off the end and I went ahead and took out any of the extra little wire pieces that might be stuck onto it. I call these wire fuzzies. As you can see, I just picked one off. These, after you've cut your chain, tend to kind of just stick around. If you leave them on there, it would be okay, but it would get into the way of your crimp. So I just say eliminate all of those little wire particles out of the way. Once you've done that, you can go back in, and I actually took a pair of chain nose pliers and widened my crimp just a little bit. And to do that, what I did was I just basically stuck it in the end cap and then I pressed out just a little bit, because 1 to 2 millimeters makes a huge difference in how easy it will be to crimp for you guys. So I recommend just opening it up just a little bit. And lastly, to make this easier on myself, I just went and used my thumb and I pressed up against between where those 2 beads are on the last part of my ball chain. You can see that little dent that I created. So that'll help to kind of just nest all of that right into the end cap there. And then I could take my wide nose pliers and crimp right over it. The crimp itself has little teeth inside of it. So the teeth grasp onto the ball chain. So that's why I added that extra little dip in the wire whenever I, squeezed it with my thumbnail. And it just kind of helped to clean up that end a little bit and just to make it nice and fit in well nested. So there that is. And like I said, I went ahead and used my crimpers to crimp one end of my beading wire. I'm going to show you how to crimp it on the other end, but I think in the interest of this tutorial, we wanted to kind of move along and get to the good stuff. So I'm going to string my beading wire right through. I think this is one of the coolest things about SilverSilk, is that those open knits really lend itself well to passing beading wire, craft wire, any kind of material, stringing material through it pretty easily. I've even sewn through it with needle and thread before and added beads that way. So once I've done that, I can start to create my pattern. So let's do this large ceramic bead. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of measure by eyeballing my capture chain around and leaving my thumb there in place. And what I'm going to do is pass my beading wire through that little space. So this will wrap comfortably around that first bead. If you have a little bit more space than you intended, you can always unstring it and it's not going to ruin a thing. And you can go a bead or two below and just restring it. So that's really the magic and most of what this tutorial is about, is fitting those beads in place to get yourself the perfect curve. And sometimes you want to add maybe an extra loop. So let me get that out of the way. To do an extra loop, you simply just kind of measure what that loop is going to look like. You can just see that I kind of just twisted it around. And this is a little bit of a unique process because you want to fit your bead into it pretty accurately. So what I'm going to do is just kind of place everything there and hold it without stringing anything. Once I've done that, I can mark it with my thumb and then go through with my beading wire pretty easily. You can see I didn't string anything in between there, but my loop is now ready to accept that bead in between it. There we go. And now I can string through the top part of that loop. And don't worry if you're lost on how to do this. I'm going to do this a couple more times throughout my bracelet. There we go. And now I can either string on another bead or I can just continue to string through my top part of my loop here, which is what I think I'm going to do. So I'll simply pick it up, string it through, and boom, got a nice little like loop that goes all the way around the bead. So you can get real fancy with this technique. Okay, I'm just going to do a simpler one on this side. So let's measure it up again. And I think it does help to have a surface to work on so that you can put your work down and do it slowly and methodically and really see what you're doing. Okay, I'm going to string through. Ooh, I wonder what this would look like in other colors. If you guys have a chance to work on this technique or this design, we'd love to see your designs in our SilverSilkies Facebook group. This is a very fun group of dedicated SilverSilk users, crafters, bead enthusiasts, all the above. And we love to create jewelry pieces that use SilverSilk and share it with our friends out there. And just the camaraderie and good vibes, because we're wanting a very positive atmosphere for creativity. So we hope you'll come and join us and share some of your designs as well. So I'm going to just do another regular loop. Or not a regular loop, just a regular curve, I guess. And then I'm going to do a loop on the next one. Okay. Cool, so my next bead, I'm going to do this cool little pearl. And I want my capture chain to wrap around that. So I'm going to just twist my capture chain around to where it hugs the bead pretty comfortably. So it looks like it needs to go through this. So working in the same direction, I'm just going to lift it up, string right through. And you can see that my loop is now ready to have that bead nested in between. Just go back down. And then just go through the top part of the loop that I just made. Very simple. Okay, there we go. And let's see, let's add a bead before we go back through our next loop. Wouldn't that be fun? What do I want to do? Maybe we do our fishy. Ooh, well, that might be a little bit of a stretch, actually. That fish is quite long. So let's alter our design here a little bit. And that's part of the fun of this, is you can make these decisions on the fly. If you mess up, you're not really throwing away any materials. You're just resituating all of the different chains and beads that are on your table. So that's kind of the nice part about this project, is that there's no waste involved. Okay, I'm going to measure around and then string right through. Perfect. That is looking brilliant. So let's see, the next bead, we can do this one. This one has a little bit of a larger hole, so you can absolutely add seed beads if you want to. It's not super important, I'd say, for this particular project, but if you kind of just want to make sure that it is nested very much in the center of your beading wire, then absolutely you can add some seed beads in there. Okay, on the next one, I think I'm going to do a nice round loop. So let's get into it. Let's do our loop. I've got some extra capture chain here that I need to organize. Okay, there we go. Cool, cool. So I think I'm going to do this crystal. So it looks like I'll need to lift up, insert, and boom. Okay, that looks really good. I'm going to string right through the top here. Awesome. Okay, the next one, it looks like I've got my little bear here. So let's have him sitting on that crystal. And then we can wrap our chain around, so it's like nice and nested in there. So my bear is sitting on the ice cap. That's my story, you guys. Remember, I keep saying beading should be fun and silly and not to be taken seriously. So you make up whatever story you want to. Okay, why don't we do another loop here to kind of tie up our design. So I'm just gonna, I measured around, I'm gonna string right up through my capture chain. Okay, I'm gonna string my bead on. Looks like it's a little loose, so let's tighten up our loop just a smidge. So I'm gonna go about 2 or 3 beads in. I think probably 3. Let's see what that does. Again, we can always take it out if it's not the right measure. Okay. There we go. Ooh, that's perfect. So we'll just string this guy right through. That'll work. And I'm going to end my chain up here, so let's string it through one more time. And that is fabulous. Okay, so now we need to terminate the end of our capture chain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually count 3 beads, 1, 2, 3, and trim. Okay, remember how I mentioned earlier that these little wire fuzzies tend to get all over the place? So just shake them out. Sometimes a bead or that little ball sticks out too much, and what you can do is probably trim it off if you want to, which in this case I'm going to. That's why I cut 3 off from the get-go there. And now I've got plenty of chain. Just knowing that it won't unravel or do anything is quite reassuring. And I'm just going to bundle it up here at the end. And again, I'm just going to go back in and press my thumb right up against that link between the first two beads of the ball chain. And you might need to, in fact, package out that little wire there too, just like that. So you got this nice little like clean finished end there. And then you're ready to, I'm glad I didn't lose this because it was on the other side of my table. I'm ready to crimp my binding, my little terminator. And that is a very professionally finished end there. So now I'm ready to crimp it. And remember how I said things are all off my table, so I gotta keep everything in the Ziploc bag. But it's time to dump it out now. And I've got an empty bowl, I suppose, so let's do it in there, just to be on the safe side. So what I'm gonna do is grab my crimp. If I remember correctly, this should fit twice. It might take a little bit of finagling, but we'll see. Yeah, okay, so, and that might be us. So the thing with soft flex crimps is that they're double the wall thickness, and sometimes that means that the beading wire can be a little bit too thick to go through it, but we're going to try and do our best here. And you can also trim the beading wire at an angle, and I've noticed that helps sometimes too. Unless I just picked up the heavy gauge instead of the medium, which is quite possible for me. There we go. So cutting it at an angle did work. So I highly recommend doing that with your beading wire. Okay, so I'm just going to push everything down now. Let's get that out of the way. Okay, and I want everything tight, but not too tight, because I want to make sure that it does move freely on your wrist and that it's not too tight. So let me get my loop here sorted out, and then we can for sure measure how we want that to be. So this looks really good. I mean, it does look really good. I'm not tooting my own horn here, but I'm really happy with that. Okay, so this looks really good. So what I'm gonna do is grab my magical crimpers, and I've got a pretty good size hole here, or loop, if you will, that matches my beginning area here as well. So it's probably, we're looking at about maybe 2 millimeters, 2.5. And what you do is you stick it inside of the one notch that's in the magical crimpers, and you press, and it becomes a little ravioli. Fantastic, right? And then you just turn it on its side, and you can just work it around and around in quarter turns. And this basically turns your round cylinder into a polished round bead. Kind of looks like the bead of your ball chain, in fact. So what you can do now, because it's secured in that good old thick wall, did actually compress into a round bead over the soft flex beading wire. So pretty cool advantage to have for that beading wire. And then you can stick on your findings. In this case, I'm just going to use a lobster claw clasp. I am mixing my metals, which is perfectly fine, because I do like silver and copper together. Personally, it's a personal preference. Some folks here don't like to mix metals, and that's perfectly okay too. I like the versatility of it. So now you have got yourself, let's see if I can clasp this, a fantastic little bracelet that says whatever you want to do story-wise. There we go. And I think it's just a beautiful, cohesive design that you can do with really just about any beads in your inventory, just depending on the look that you're going for, and even embellish it with a Silky's charm if you want to. So let me flip myself back around here, and I'm going to show you the picture of the after. Yay! Guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I really love this bracelet. I think it'll be a great fit for one of my friends that I'll give it to, who actually was able to visit Patagonia. And so hopefully it'll bring back some great memories for them. But if you are looking for additional inspiration, you can definitely follow my Instagram. And while you're here on YouTube, or if you do end up going to YouTube, please subscribe to my channel, SilverSilk and More, and be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and definitely leave a comment if you have a question or just are showing the channel some love. Otherwise, keep it creative and fun and exciting, and I will see you again at our next tutorial. Big hugs to you guys.